Most IELTS students spend hundreds of hours studying vocabulary lists, watching model answers, and practicing speaking questions. But I have met very few students who've actually read the document that decides their speaking score. And this document is called the IELTS Speaking Band Descriptors, and it's the rubric examiners are using to score your speaking test. I've linked the official document in the description below, so make sure to check it out. When you read the official IELTS speaking rubric, you'll see phrases like flexible use of discourse markers, able to produce long turns without noticeable effort, and uses a wide range of phonological features. These phrases sound complicated, but they actually describe very simple speaking skills. In this video, I'll explain exactly what they mean. Now don't worry, I'm not going to explain the entire rubric today. What I am going to do, though, is explain 10 words and phrases from the band's 7, 8, and 9 descriptors that I found many students don't understand. This is the score many of you are shooting for, and in order to get there, you have to understand exactly what an examiner like myself is listening for. Once you do that, you can adapt your studies and reviews to make sure you're making the most of your study time. So let's get started. In this lesson, we'll look at 10 key phrases from the official speaking rubric, and I'll explain what they actually mean in plain English. By the end of the video, you'll understand how the rubric describes fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, and what examiners are really listening for during the test. And remember, you have to know what the examiner is listening for if you want to score in the higher bands. Now, just a quick reminder that the IELTS speaking test is scored using 4 criteria: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Each one contributes 25% of your final speaking score. Now, let's look at some important language from the higher bands. First, we're going to look at the phrase flexible use in band 7. The fluency and coherence rubric says flexible use of spoken discourse markers, connectives, and cohesive features. This sounds complicated, but the meaning is simple. Here, we're basically looking at how you are connecting your ideas. The examiner is listening to how you connect ideas grammatically within your sentences and paragraphs, as well as how you use discourse markers to clarify what you are saying and to let your listener know where you're going next. The biggest problem for students with lower scores is that they often repeat the same discourse marker again and again. For example, I like reading. Also, I like watching movies. Also, I like to go to the cinema. A Band 7 speaker is going to use different ways to connect ideas. For example, well, I enjoy reading because it helps me relax. Besides that, I also like watching movies. For instance, I often head to the cinema to watch films on weekends. The key idea here for Band 7 is that we want to use a variety of these terms in a natural way. For number 2, we're going to stick with Band 7. The phrase used in the descriptor is that the student is able to keep going and readily produce long turns without noticeable effort. Now, there are 2 things really going on here. The first is the phrase long turn. In case you don't know, the long turn is your part 2, where you speak for 2 minutes by yourself. The second part is that you can continue talking comfortably. Noticeable effort means that when I'm examining you, I can tell that you are struggling. I can tell that you are scared. It may mean that your speech sounds difficult or forced. To get a Band 7 here, you have to come off more relaxed and casual. For example, compare these 2 answers. I like traveling because it's interesting. I like traveling because it allows me to explore new places and experience different cultures. The second speaker sounds more comfortable and fluent. which is what the rubric means by speaking without noticeable effort. Now, understand that this doesn't mean that there is no hesitation at all when you speak. In fact, our next descriptor phrase is also from Band 7 and says that some hesitation, repetition, and/or self-correction may occur. Many students believe that they must speak perfectly to reach a Band 7, and this isn't true. Band 7 speakers are allowed to hesitate sometimes. Actually, Band 8 and Band 9 students are also allowed to hesitate. But remember, any hesitation at Band 7 and up is not going to affect your coherence. This means that it won't affect how your listener understands you. This is something that happens at only the lower band scores. For those of you aiming for an even higher score, let's look at Band 8, with topic development is coherent, appropriate, and relevant. This means speakers extend their answers instead of giving short statements. Even more than that, your answer is building on itself. Each idea and statement connects. It makes sense, and it's linked to the other ideas and statements, as well as to the question itself. A lot of times students at lower band scores kind of get lost in their answer. They get confused. The examiner gets confused. Basically, everyone is just a bit lost. Higher band speakers, though, like those hitting Band 8 and Band 9 in Fluency and Coherence, explain their ideas, and they give reasons, and they provide examples. Their answers are tight, focused, and relevant to the exam question. Let's move on to lexical resource. At Band 8, the descriptor says a wide resource, readily and flexibly used to discuss all topics and convey precise meaning. This means speakers can talk about many topics comfortably, and they choose words that express their ideas clearly. Also note that we want precise meaning here. We're no longer using general adjectives to describe things. Students have enough language here to really discuss things and make fine points. They can be very, very precise. For example, instead of saying the movie was interesting, a stronger, more precise response might be, the movie was really engaging and thought-provoking. Notice that the vocabulary is more precise, but it's not necessarily more difficult or more academic sounding. Before we get to the next 5 items, if you want to improve your speaking skills, comment free for my free IELTS speaking checklist, and be sure to click on the link here or in the description to check out my upcoming classes and to study with me. Band 8 in the vocabulary category is also asking for skillful use of less common and idiomatic items, despite occasional inaccuracies in word choice and collocations. This means higher band speakers are using less common words or expressions. For example, traveling abroad can be quite eye-opening. However, the rubric also says mistakes can still occur. Look, idiomatic items can be really hard to use, and even Band 8 speakers sometimes choose the wrong word or collocation. Now, Band 7 also mentions less common vocabulary and idiomatic items, and says students here have some ability to use less common and idiomatic items, and an awareness of style and collocation is evident, though inappropriacies occur. Again, though, it is so important for you to realize that idiomatic items is much bigger than idioms. Also, you shouldn't be dropping in idiom bombs with words and phrases that you don't understand how to use. Yes, mistakes are allowed, but generally you can see the rubric wants you to be using these with an awareness of style and collocation. Let's move on to grammatical range and accuracy. At Band 8, you want a wide range of structures, flexibly used. Of course, Higher band speakers use different types of sentences, such as complex sentences or conditional sentences. Variety in sentence structure shows grammatical range. Also, while errors are still allowed in Band 8, they must be non-systematic. This means that they cannot be the same kind of errors over and over again. If you always make a subject-verb error with certain verbs, you will not be able to get a Band 8 in grammar. Let's move on to our final category, pronunciation. At Band 8, you must use a wide range of phonological features. But what does this mean? Well, it means all of those things that go towards your pronunciation. Yes, we are talking about the sounds of the syllables and words you're saying, but pronunciation and phonological features is much bigger than that. Examiners are also listening for things like stress, rhythm, and intonation. In other words, they listen for the natural music of English and how you're using that to get across precise and subtle meaning to your listener. For our final item, I want to go back to fluency and coherence to look at the Band 9 descriptor phrase. Fluent with only very occasional repetition or self-correction. Band 9 speakers sound extremely comfortable. They rarely pause, repeat themselves, or struggle for language. Their speech flows naturally, almost like a conversation between friends. It's a very high bar, but with work and focused practice, I think you can get there. We've just gone over 10 terms from the IELTS speaking rubric that you need to understand to get the best mark that you're capable of getting. But the most important lesson from this rubric is this. The difference between Band 6 and Band 7, or 7 and 8, or 8 and 9 is not just big vocabulary. It's usually smoother fluency, clearer connections between ideas, answers that are developed more fully, and a wider range of what you're doing with your voice as you speak. If you want to improve your speaking score, you have to start by understanding how examiners actually evaluate your answers. Remember, you need to read the official IELTS Speaking Band Descriptors yourself, and I've included the link in the description below. So go check it out. Also, if you found this video helpful, give it a like and make sure you subscribe and think about sharing it with your friends. I'm focusing on growing my channel this year, so any help you can give me is really appreciated. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy studies.